He who has no manners has no knowledge, a life-changing Islamic story. Imagine a man who knew everything: Quran, poetry, history, but one thing was missing. His tongue was sharp, his heart was arrogant, and his manners were harsh. Then Hazrat Ali's words struck him. He who has no manners has no knowledge. What happened next will shake your soul. The night in Kufa was alive with the flickering glow of lanterns, their light trembling in the desert wind like hearts uncertain of their fate. The streets were hushed, and the fragrance of freshly baked bread drifted through narrow alleys, mingling with the sound of water sellers calling out in the marketplace. Among the crowd walked a young man named Zubair, the son of a wealthy merchant. His robe was stitched with fine threads from Persia, his sandals gleamed, and his tongue was sharper than any blade. People in the market whispered about him. He has memorized poetry from the Arabs, he knows trade like his father, and he speaks eloquently. But his arrogance, his manners are harsher than the desert storm. Zubair believed knowledge was his crown. He studied with scholars, recited verses, and argued in gatherings, silencing others with his wit. But his knowledge lacked humility, and his tongue was dipped in pride. He mocked those who mispronounced a word, laughed at the poor who stumbled in their speech, and belittled the old for forgetting lines of poetry. One evening, as the call to prayer echoed, Zubair entered the masjid late. He brushed past elders, stepped over shoulders, and sat arrogantly at the front. His perfume filled the space, but so did his disrespect. When the imam recited the Quran, Zubair corrected him loudly, though the imam had recited correctly. Murmurs spread. Some admired his confidence. Others felt pain at his arrogance. It was not long before the words of Hazrat Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, the cousin and son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, reached his ears. Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, had said, "He who has no manners has no knowledge." These words were repeated in the gathering Zubair attended, but he scoffed. Manners? Knowledge shines brighter than manners. A pearl needs no velvet box to display its worth. The people turned their faces away, for arrogance is foul even when wrapped in intelligence. That very night, Zubair had a dream. He saw himself standing in a vast desert under a sky heavy with stars. A great library stood before him, its doors tall as mountains, filled with scrolls of wisdom. He rushed to enter, but every time he touched the door, it slammed shut. A voice echoed in the desert wind. Knowledge without manners is like a locked treasure. You may admire it, but it will never be yours. He woke trembling, sweat beading his forehead. Yet his heart was still hard. He brushed the dream aside, thinking it was nothing but imagination. Days turned into weeks. One day, a poor man approached Zubair in the marketplace. His clothes were torn, and his children clung to his side, hungry. "O Zubair," the man pleaded, "can you spare a little grain?" Zubair smirked, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "Do you beg because you are too lazy to work? Go earn with your hands like men do." The poor man's eyes filled with tears as his children tightened their grip on him. People lowered their gaze, ashamed of Zubair's cruelty, but none spoke. That night, the poor man and his children went to the masjid. Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, himself was present. He noticed their pale faces, their trembling hands, and asked what troubled them. The man told them about Zubair's harshness. Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, listened, then lifted his noble gaze toward the heavens and said softly, "Knowledge is not in the tongue that speaks, but in the heart that bows. He who has no manners has no knowledge, even if he memorizes every book." These words reached Zubair again. This time, they pricked his heart like thorns. Yet he still resisted. The test of Allah was near. One day, Zubair was boasting in the marketplace about his wisdom when a caravan arrived from Medina. Among them was an old scholar, blind in one eye, leaning on a wooden staff. His name was Abdullah, a student of companions. The people rushed to greet him, eager to hear hadith and wisdom. Zubair, proud as ever, stood before the crowd and asked loudly, "O Abdullah, I know you are learned, but answer me, what is greater, knowledge, or manners? The crowd hushed. Abdullah smiled faintly and replied, "Knowledge without manners is a tree without fruit. Manners without knowledge are a lamp without oil. But together they light the world. Yet if I must choose, manners are greater, for they protect knowledge, but knowledge cannot protect bad manners." The crowd nodded in awe, but Zubair laughed scornfully. "You speak like an old man who has lost his sharpness. True greatness lies in intellect." Abdullah lowered his head, whispering, "I fear for you, young man, that your pride will be your downfall." And downfall came swiftly. That same week, a debate was held in Kufa between scholars of Quran, fiqh, and poetry. Zubair rushed to the front, determined to shine. The hall filled with judges, merchants, students, and travelers. The debate began. At first, Zubair's tongue danced like fire. He quoted verses, recited lines, and silenced rivals. But as questions grew harder, his arrogance betrayed him. He mocked an elder who faltered in memory, calling him senile. Gasps filled the hall. The elder's eyes filled with pain, but he remained silent. Then a boy barely 12 years old stood and asked a simple question about humility in the Quran. Zubair, puffed with pride, dismissed him. "What do children know of wisdom? Sit down." The crowd stirred uncomfortably. Eyes turned away from him. His brilliance now seemed hollow, like a jewel covered in dust. Then Abdullah, the old scholar, rose slowly with his staff. He recited softly, "Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you." Quran 49:13. His voice trembled, but his words shook the hall. "And righteousness is not in the tongue that boasts, nor in the wealth that shines, but in the manners that protect the heart." The people rose in respect. Tears filled eyes. And Zubair, his face burned with shame. He left the hall, his head low for the first time in his life. That night, alone in his chamber, he remembered Hazrat Ali's words, Abdullah's advice, and the poor man's tearful eyes. He wept bitterly. His knowledge had won him pride, but his lack of manners had stripped him of honor. For days, he avoided the marketplace. His arrogance melted into silence. He sought the poor man he once mocked, placed food in his hands, and whispered, "Forgive me." The man embraced him, saying, "Manners are not in words, but in deeds." Zubair began to change. He listened more, spoke less. When elders entered, he stood. When children asked, he bent low to answer. When the poor knocked, he gave without question. His knowledge now flowed with humility. Years later, people would say, "There was once a young man of arrogance, but today he is an ocean of wisdom and mercy." His transformation became a lesson for all, that true knowledge is not measured by how much you know, but by how gentle you are with Allah's creation. And whenever someone asked him about his change, Zubair would smile with tears in his eyes and say, "Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, was right. He who has no manners has no knowledge." My dear brothers and sisters, knowledge without manners is like a locked treasure, beautiful but useless. Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, reminds us that true wisdom shines only when clothed in humility. If this story touched your heart, don't let it stop here. Share it with your family, your friends, and your children. Let the wisdom of our Deen spread like light in the darkness. And remember to subscribe to Deen in Minute for more powerful Islamic stories that revive the heart and strengthen faith. May Allah grant us knowledge that humbles us and manners that raise us. Ameen.